What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, guys, let's work through our power rankings and then we'll be out of here for the day. All odds, again, are provided by our partner, DraftKings. So, number 10, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They capped off a 3-1 week with a win last night at home against the Spurs. Another really strong defensive performance. Victor hit several tough shots in that game, but I thought Julius Randle really made him work hard. He took 30 shots to get to his 34 points. I thought he did a really nice job defensively there. Gobert made several huge plays down the stretch. Manhandled Victor Wembanyama on an offensive rebound putback. He set a monster off-ball screen that got Donte DiVincenzo open on the left wing for three. He drew a foul on the offensive glass and made both free throws. His typical excellent defense, switching onto guards and ball screens. He got a big contest as Wemby was coming into a movement three. I just thought he was really good. And Ant had a bad game where he couldn't really make a shot to save his life, and they got the win anyway. A big one for the Wolves. They're 9-4 in their last 13 games, and all 9 of their wins were against winning teams. They beat the Clippers twice, the Lakers twice, the Warriors, the Spurs twice, the Mavs, and the Rockets. They've had a good stretch of health. All of their top 8 rotation players have played in every single game in this stretch. In this span, they're 23rd in offense. Everything is still a chore on that end of the floor. Spacing is terrible. They go through extended stretches every game where the offense just grinds to a halt. A lot of really interesting stuff coming out of the lineup data. Like the bench groups are just consistently playing better. Like staggered bench starter groups that have more shooting are consistently playing better than the starters. When you make basketball easier for your players, like when you make things function on offense by providing them space, they start to believe in what they're doing more, which gets them to defend better. That's the dead giveaway. The starting lineup has their best defensive talent. In 379 minutes, they have a 111 defensive rating. That's not very good. I mean, it's very good, but it's not as good as Minnesota is capable of, right? And it's because they don't believe in what they're doing on offense. When you're getting buckets, you feel good about yourself. You believe more in what you're trying to do on both ends of the floor. You do a better job on defense. The best example of this is their bench group. They have this bench group with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, flanked by Donte DiVincenzo, Gilgeous-Alexander Walker, and Naz Reid. All 3 good three-point shooters. They have a 122 offensive rating, a 100 defensive rating, 10 points better than the starting group in over 100 minutes this year. That's not a small sample. Plus 22 points per 100 possessions. That is proof of concept of this idea that I've been talking about forever. 2 concepts, right? 1, do we need rim protection if we can defend on the perimeter? No. If you defend on the perimeter well, in that group, Ant, Julius, Donte, and Gilgeous-Alexander Walker, they all can guard. You guard on the perimeter, you create an easier job on the back line, and you can defend well even without having rim protection on the floor. And then most importantly, Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are downhill players. And if you're asking downhill players to play in a crowd, you're making their life more difficult. With those groups, Julius Randle's doing a wonderful job pressuring the rim and spraying out to shooters. Life is easier for everybody, and they look better. As a team, they have been defending really well in this 9-4 stretch. They're second in defense. They're shutting down the paint. They're second in points per game allowed in that span. They're defending the three-point line well. They're 7th in opponents' threes made. Doing well on the margins, too, like keeping opponents out of fast break situations, keeping them off the offensive glass. Really balanced scoring, too. Ant is only averaging 20.5 points per game in the span. Julius is only averaging 18.2. Like, again, the pace is really low. It's a chore. But they're shooting the three well enough to kind of make up. Specifically, Julius and Ant are shooting the 3 well enough to try to get some shots in over the top of their poor spacing situations. Donte DiVincenzo is coming on strong. He's shooting 42% from 3 in this span. He's averaging 11 points per game. He had a monster game against the Spurs. He had 26 points and hit 5 threes. But they have an identity. They grind games down to a halt with their defense. They play super slow, and then they rely on Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards' ability to get to their spots, even though they can be inefficient from time to time. I'm still super concerned about this offense in the big picture. But at the very least, they've managed to float in the regular season by recapturing their defensive identity. Right now, the Timberwolves are plus 3,000 to win the NBA title, plus 1,300 to win the Western Conference. Number 9, the Los Angeles Clippers. We talked about them in the earlier segment of the show, so I'm not going to get any further into them right now. If you want to hear more Clippers talk, just go to the full episode. But right now, the Clippers are plus 4,000 to win the title, plus 1,900 to win the Western Conference. Number 8, the Los Angeles Lakers. We also talked about them a lot in the opening segment, so I'm not going to get any further into them right now. But back-to-back wins against the Warriors and Kings. They've now won 6 out of 8. Austin Reeves is hooping his ass off in this stretch. 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists on 60% true shooting. Just 2.9 turnovers per game. Hit a game winner in the Golden State game. Had the insane passing clinic that he put on against the Sacramento Kings the other night. The Lakers right now plus 3,500 to win the NBA title, plus 1,700 to win the Western Conference. Number 7, the Memphis Grizzlies, 2-2 week. Lost to the Clippers and Thunder. They beat the Pelicans as well as the Raptors. Ja Morant went down with a sprain of his AC joint in the win against the Pelicans on Friday. Really struggled to score during this like massive landslide of a run that Oklahoma City put on them in the second quarter. It was it was just one of those situations where, and Oklahoma City's been doing this to everybody at this point, but like Oklahoma City can really strangle the life out of you. I think they gave up only 19 points in the second quarter during that run. Tough timing for the Grizzlies because their schedule's really tough right now. They're at the Suns next, at the Kings, at the Warriors, home for Dallas and Houston, then at Minnesota, at Houston, at San Antonio, and then home for Minnesota. And as of right now, I tried to dig into it. There's no timetable on Ja Morant's return right now. So hopefully he can come back soon because that schedule's pretty tough. The Grizzlies plus 2,200 to win the title, plus 1,000 to win the Western Conference. Number 6, the Houston Rockets. We're seeing our first little bit of sustained shakiness from the Houston Rockets. After starting 15-6, they are 6-5 in their last 11 games. They've lost 2 in a row. Basically comes down to defensive slippage. Their offense has been bad most of the year, but they only have a 109 defensive rating in this stretch. Ironically, the groups with Amen Thompson in for Dillon Brooks with the starters have a defensive rating over 120. It's pretty weird. The main starting group also has a negative net rating. So this is with Dillon Brooks. So this is with Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith, and Şengün. That group has a negative net rating in the last 11 games. Just can't score. They have a 103 offensive rating with that group. There's been a recurring theme, too, in the last couple of games with Houston blowing leads. They blew a 7-point lead with 7 minutes left against Miami, and then they blew a 16-point lead with 5 minutes left against Minnesota. In this 11-game stretch, they've dropped 3 games in clutch situations, scoring just 65 points per 100 possessions on offense in those clutch situations. They've been bad all season in clutch situations on offense, but especially bad as of late. Right now, the Rockets are plus 8,000 to win the NBA title, plus 2,500 to win the Western Conference. Number 5, the Dallas Mavericks. 2-2 week. They beat Portland and Phoenix. They lost to Portland and Minnesota. Really tough defensive game against Portland. Like Kyrie goes off. He had 40-something. Their role players were hitting shots. They just allowed 5 Blazers to score at least 19 points. Didn't get enough stops. But as I said at the time of the Luka injury, I still think this is one of the best rosters in the league, and they still have a lot of talent when Luka is out. Beating the Suns without Luka is a great example of that. They just have a really strong floor every night because they have great rim protection, a variety of different perimeter talent that they could go to depending on the matchup, plenty of ball handling to cover when stars are out. If they can just hang in that 5 to 8 range over this next 4 to 6 weeks while Luka's out, I think they'll be fine. Right now, Dallas plus 1,100 to win the title, plus 550 to win the Western Conference. Number 4, the Boston Celtics, who are very much asleep at the wheel right now. Everything is about them just giving a shit. From what I can tell, you drop a game at home to Chicago and then you get pissed off and go into Chicago and just absolutely dominate them to send a message. You drop a game to Orlando without Tatum, whatever. You lose a weird game to Philly where your game plan that you've been using against everybody, that's been working against everybody, doesn't work because Caleb Martin hit 7 threes. And so then you bounce back by like beating the living shit out of the Indiana Pacers, again, sending a clear message. But then you let the same Pacers team come in on Sunday and punch you in the mouth. They really got bullied physically in that game. The Celtics have lost 5 out of 9. The defense has been bad. They have a 117 defensive rating in these last 5 games, or in the 5 losses, I should say, over that 9-game stretch. They're not hitting shots. They're just 30% from 3. I would caution against just calling it variance because they're still shooting really well when they're wide open. They're shooting 38% on wide open threes, which is more or less what they've shot all season. It's the moderately contested threes they're not shooting as well on. They were 39% before this stretch, 30% in this 9-game stretch, and that's been the big difference. Derek White had some interesting comments after the Pacers loss about how this has been the hardest stretch that he's played on since he came over to the Celtics. And like, I'm going to go positive here. I think that adversity is good. I think it's good to get punched in the mouth every once in a while. especially when you're so good that you're kicking everybody's butt and you start to get a little bit full of yourself, right? Humility is a good thing in that regard. And adversity, in my opinion, has always brought out the best in basketball players. So frankly, I'm kind of excited to see Boston face some more adversity this year. Not just in the regular season, they're going to face better playoff teams this year. And I'm just curious to see how they respond. I expect a positive response. That's why I'm still picking them to win the title. But I thought Derek White's comments were interesting because that's really the thing that we're going to be keeping an eye on moving forward. How they handle their first real stretch of adversity in the last couple of years. Number 3, the New York Knicks, 4-0 week. They beat the Raptors, the Spurs, the Magic, and the Wizards. The Wizards put a little bit of a scare into them on Saturday night. Justin Champagnie hit 1,000,000 threes, and Jalen Brunson just pulled them back from the brink with an offensive masterclass. He scored or assisted on every single bucket in the final 6 minutes of regulation. He hit Bilal Coulibaly with this nasty hesitation move to hit a floater that sent the game to OT. Then he scored 9 more points in overtime, and they put the Wizards away. Brunson finished with 55 points and 9 assists on 31 shots with only 3 turnovers. That's preposterously high usage to not have a single turnover. To only have 3 turnovers. Jalen Brunson's done a really nice job all year of feeling out when the team needs him to do everything on offense versus when they need him to just take a step back. They're 8-1 this year when he scores 20 or fewer points. But they're also 5-1 when he scores 35 or more. I thought that was a really interesting stat to demonstrate that touch from Brunson in terms of understanding when to really put his imprint on the game versus to play more as a cog in a system. Since November 15th, the Knicks are 17-4. It's the second best record in the league. Oklahoma City 16-13, but they're technically 16-14 because they lost an in-season tournament game. The Knicks are second in offense in that span, 14th in defense, 3rd in net rating, 6th in rebounding, doing some more damage on the offensive glass too, looking more like last year's team. 65th in assist percentage. Remember, this team last year was 59% in assist percentage, which ranked second to last in the entire league. So a lot more equal opportunity offense. The formula is coming together. They're really defending on the perimeter and using it as a weapon to get out in transition. They're 6th in points off of turnovers in this span and 5th in fast break points. They're also playing really good drive and kick ball, getting a lot of really good use out of their offensive talent. And then Brunson is able to provide that apex shot creation that they need when things bog down. They are battling on the offensive glass again, capturing some of that identity from last year. The Knicks right now plus 850 to win the NBA title, plus 390 to win the conference. Number 2, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're going through an absolutely dominant stretch of defense. They've held 6 of their last 7 opponents to 106 points or fewer. 4 of their last 7 opponents to fewer than 100 points. Their offense has still been super up and down, but they've been winning even when they don't shoot well because of the strength of their defense. And then when they shoot well, they just beat the hell out of you. That's really the thing. When Oklahoma City makes shots, you lose by 25, 30 points. Since the in-season tournament loss to Milwaukee, since that tournament loss doesn't technically count in the regular season, the Thunder have won 11 in a row and 15 out of 16. The offense is getting better. They're 7th in that 16-game span. Obviously, the clunker against Milwaukee notwithstanding. By far the best defense in the league over that span. They're 4 points better than the second-place Clippers. Shai has been gaining ground on the MVP race and very well might be the leader right now. He's averaging 33 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists on 65% true shooting with just 2.7 turnovers per game. He's playing some super special basketball right now. Isaiah Hartenstein's been great, 13, 13, and 4 assists. With a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. The Thunder are kicking ass. If you believe in them right now, they're plus 300 to win the NBA title, plus 150 to win the conference. And the Cavs, we're not going to go too deep into them. They're 2-0 this week, beat the Jazz and beat the Nuggets. We talked about them in the top of today's show. So make sure you get over to the full episode for that. The Cavs right now, plus 1,600 to win the NBA title,